Hey everyone, just a quick recap from our call the other day. I apologize that my technology failed me, but want to make sure you have the information. So within that financial tab, when you go into your main transactions dashboard, this is really where we start to work within the system. And so on that main transactions dashboard, I can really see, hey, I've got a couple active listings. I've got these are the contracts that you have open pending, and then how many checklists are you working with? As you scroll down the screen, these are going to be your main red flags for what's going on within your overall transaction system. So what workflows need attention? What's closing soon? Do you have transactions without seller information? And then as we get further down, you'll notice that there are things that we'll be pulling from MLS, such as transactions with incorrect list price. What this means is, hey, the digital file that I have for the office doesn't match what's in MLS. So it's very likely that your agent has processed a change form for a price and just hasn't alerted the office that that listing has changed. From this gauge, you'll be able to easily access that transaction to update your records. Now, as you scroll further down, you'll also be able to see any recently added transactions and all of the transactions that we are pulling from MLS that do not have a file associated with them. So here underneath this listings without transaction, I can actually see, hey, I've got a commercial listing at 428 Prairie Road Northeast, and you can start that transaction by clicking this plus button, which is what we're going to do in just one moment. I do want to just make sure you see one more gauge at the bottom, and that is the listings with incorrect status. Again, hey, is it an open pending file in your office and maybe it's in MLS as closed, or in MLS it's canceled and you have it as an active listing. And this just helps you keep your ducks in a row with what's going on with your agents, especially as they're busy through the high season. Now, if you want to start a transaction, you can absolutely do it from this main dashboard by clicking on the plus button next to the listing. So if I scroll through here and I select a listing to start, maybe I want to do this land listing at Geneva Golf Club, I can click on the plus button and notice that it's going to pull in all of the information from MLS so that all that I'm entering is that listing expire date. Here I can go ahead, I can put that expire date in, and as I scroll down, I can verify the information on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I'm able to assign a manager, if there's a listing coordinator, a buying coordinator, and I also can attach a checklist. Now for a listing, there are two checklists. A checklist for an active listing and a checklist for once that listing goes under contract. You can add both at this time, or if you'd prefer to just add that one listing checklist in there, no big deal, go ahead, add it in, and click Save and Continue. The next step in the wizard is to go in and to be able to add the commission per the listing contract. You can enter in percentages, or you can leave these as zeros and put in flat fees simply by typing them in. Once that's in, you can go ahead and move to the next screen. There's also a spot on the screen to add any referrals or deductions or income. If you don't know what this is when you're entering the listing, don't worry, you can modify this within the transaction as well. Once you click Save and Continue, you're going to attach the people to the transaction. So I can see here it actually pulled the listing agent. So Brandon, you got automatically pulled through. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and then add the buyer or the seller, depending on the side of the transaction. Once I do this, I'm going to say, hey, this is a seller, it's a person. And as I start typing that person's name, if they are in the user's CRM, they're going to populate in this list. If they're not, you can go ahead and click on the plus button here so that you can easily add them to that client's CRM. Or if you don't want to do that, you just need to move forward with the transaction, go ahead, type their name in, click on Finish, and now you can move forward. On this screen, you can also add vendors. So if you want to track title, mortgage, warranty, lawyer vendors, you absolutely can do that. To add a vendor, you simply click the plus button next to the vendor you'd like to add, and then you can start typing that vendor name. Now, this vendor name pool is a shared database. So if I've entered in a vendor in the past, you don't have to enter them in twice. If you haven't, you can add a vendor by clicking on the plus, saying this is First Street Law Firm, Then you can add the contact at that office. So perhaps this contact is Steve, the lawyer. And again, you can add additional contact information. So you could put in Steve's email address. Once that vendor is added for one transaction, it is now available to be added on any transaction. As I scroll down, I click Save and Continue. I get a nice review of the transaction, and I can go ahead and click Finish, and it's going to pull that transaction out from the right-hand side of the screen. Here, I can see all of the details about the transaction, including the status, the seller side email address. If this is a buyer transaction, it would have a buyer side transaction email address, as well as when it was added, created, the listing activation, expiration date, all things here. Now, when I close out, I'm going to be able to see that transaction underneath my Transactions tab here. And this is where you'll be able to see all transactions. If you need to edit a transaction, no big deal. Go ahead, click on their name. It will open up that transaction here. If you need to add an additional transaction, perhaps you need to add a buyer transaction, you can click on the plus buyer in the upper right-hand corner. Now you'll notice the screen looks really similar to the other screen we were on for the wizard. And again, I'm just going to go ahead, type in property address or MLS ID. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to select property. And as I go through here, you can see, hey, is this active? Is it pending? What's going on? I'm going to narrow down this list a little bit so I can hopefully find a pending listing. And once I find that listing, it's going to autofill all of that information. Now I do have to choose, is it a sale or a lease? I have to put in when the contract was written, and I also have to put in when it's estimated to close. Now I can see all of that information on the left-hand side. I also can, again, add the coordinators, add that checklist, and now I'm going to go to the next screen. Once I do this, all I'm verifying here is the commission on the buy side, because if you're not the listing, you don't know what the listing commission is. Again, I can add referrals, deductions, and income on this screen, and if not, you can always edit it within the transaction. And here I'm going to add the agent. If an agent's entering their own transaction, it will autofill their information. However, if I'm entering it in as an admin, I can go in, I can type that agent's name. Hey, this is Brandon. And I can scroll down, I can make sure his office is correct, and I can add him to that transaction. Again, you have to add the buyer. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add the buyer. I can type in that contact name, or I could just type in information and move forward. Again, if you want to populate your agent CRM, you would click on this plus button here, and then I click Finish. Once I've done that, I can add vendors, or I can save and continue to review. And again, see that come out. I can see that information here. And now I've got an active buyer transaction. So I've got an active buyer. So really what's going to be happening as we're moving forward to Dash is this is the time to go in and really work the system. So hey, I need to edit things. I need to practice putting in transactions. Our next session is going to really dig into managing that paperless checklist as well as managing and assigning workflows. So that's the next step in this process. But anything that's within this tab is going to get deleted before we sync with Dash. And so taking the time to walk through that wizard a few times, maybe going in and making sure that you understand, hey, I need to attach a seller's checklist. Perhaps you need to change the listing date. You can absolutely do that. You also can go in and adjust the list price or the estimated sales price. Hey, the list price for this one was $35,000. The estimated sales price is going to be $36,000. Once I edit those fields in, I can click on Save and have that in. So between now and our next session, I would encourage you to go in, start a few transactions, make yourself familiar with that wizard and walking through it. and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Have a great day.